is from our process. Right now I feel very transcendent, and my mind is struggling with this because I have a little bit headache, and my orientation is I feel I lost my mind, so and the control. I stand sometimes anywhere here, and I don't know what I do or where I'm going. So, and yeah, I'm afraid about this right now, and I feel there's no line that can I hold. So, yeah, yeah, I'm afraid for the transcendent. So, but there is the.
Can you just? Are you afraid for the transcendent, or you afraid of the transcendent? And I know it's in a language, but I just want to make sure. Because transcendent is fine. You shouldn't worry about transcendent. You know, there's no need to worry what's going to happen to a transcendent. But are you afraid of being in that strong transcendence?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to add to that? I'm not crying. No, I just.
I don't know. Maybe I'm afraid. So, and I feel that I have to say it. So.
Yes, of course. And I'm glad you brought it out into the open for sure. Well, again, right, like ways of giving it a stab at it, a kind of English way of putting it, right? There are different ways how we can approach this. In a more humorous way, we could begin, for example, did you know where you were going before? Right? Because you said, like, I don't know where I'm going. Like, did you have a clear idea where you're going?
Where I'm going? How do you mean?
Yeah. I'm just saying, one of the ways to approach a question like that is in that more light-hearted, humorous way. You know, whenever someone says to me, I don't know now, where am I going? Where am I heading? All right, did you know that? Did you have any idea where you were going before? It's a natural thing to ask, right? If you lost your way, right, then did you know where you're going before? Does that make sense?
I don't know.
Ob du vorher gewusst hast, wo du hingehst?
No.
You see, so sometimes I love, and I love. When I laugh, I love to laugh, and vice versa. I love when we can laugh at very serious things. You know, when something is very, very serious, when something really gets serious, we can still laugh at it. Not that we somehow dismiss the predicament or the dilemma, but if we can laugh, then there's nothing to be afraid of. You know, there's nothing to worry about. And like really, our worries are not really that sound. But to give it maybe more, to add oomph into it, right? To add some substance so that you can hang on to something here. It is the way of life and a way of living a creative life. A way of living a creative life is when we are from time to time encountering this not knowing where we're going, not knowing what we're doing, not knowing what the heck is going on. Because these are all marks of a creative being. You cannot be creative and knowing it all. We will speak about creativity a lot in the coming days. Earlier on, when we had these exchanges with Tamer about there is something I came with. I would like to have that permission to speak about these matters. I would like to be inspired to share with all of you the deepest passion that I have always pursued from as early as I remember myself. Because if I can share that, then this time is not wasted and I'm not really here falling in some delusion of misguiding anyone. So there is, and there will be a lot about creativity. Creativity is all there is. The whole point of life is to be in a creative state. And I even mentioned very recently, I don't know when and what occasion, but it just still fresh in my memory, that one of the surest tests of finding out where we are, how we're doing, right, is to simply sense whether we feel creative. This is the only test of how conscious we are. In fact, we can switch, if you will, change the spiritual discourse, language, which is being utilized, and use it slightly differently, which I would like to give it a go at. I would like to try that as well. So instead of speaking about how much aware we are, how conscious we are, we could say how creative we are. It's equal. It's not only synonymous here, it means the same thing. And again, just as when we speak about what does it mean to be conscious, what does it mean to be fully conscious, or conscious to the fuller capacity, it in turn implies that being free from what imposes that in the first place, being free from these impositions. The same with creativity. Being creative is being free of impositions. As simple as that. And that also, at the very same time, presupposes, again, from time to time, being lost. Because when you're not lost, you're not adjusting anything. When everyone is going like, kind of like tunnel vision, just going somewhere, doing something. You ask this person, hang on a second, where are you going, dear? Don't even ask. Do not interrupt. Okay, do not interfere. I know where I'm going and I'm going to get there. So not knowing is something you need to learn to live with. Not being dumb about all this. Not being lost. Although sometimes being lost means you will find your way. You will find a better way. You will find more evolved way of being. Only when we feel lost, we can find something. If we don't feel lost, if we think everything is nice and dandy, we are cool and fluffy, nothing can change. So that's the first take at it, in the sense that it's an invitation to welcome that, I welcome you to that place which at times will feel also uncomfortable. It will feel uncomfortable. I know it's easier for me to give these examples in a more tangible, tactile way as a painter, and that may fall flat for you as examples, because you may say, well, I'm sorry, I don't paint, or I don't like make things with my hands, that sort of I don't relate to that. But you can transfer that into any area of your life. You can find analogy to that. Whenever we are about to create something, we are in a special state. In that moment, we don't know what we're going to create. This will come later. This is the next step, next phase. In that state of unknown, there's a lot of creativity. It's being simply swelled. And in essence, it's very hard to put your finger on what that is. And if we are not familiar with that, the propensity is to, like, I'm lost. I'm a lost case. I don't know what will come of me, what I'm going to do in life, what's going to happen. You see? All worst scenarios begin to paint themselves in immediately. Goes back to that. I love that exchange that was brought in earlier. You know, how much suffering? Are you aware of suffering? Are you aware of bliss? It's that. Are you aware of suffering? Are you aware of bliss? So that's first, and maybe second. So that you, first of all, learn to embrace, live life from this place where you would not necessarily have immediate answers to what you're going to do next, but in that more creative, more open state and place, you have much greater capacity to express yourself. Not that I want you immediately large on that. I would like you, in fact, if it is possible for you, if you can afford it, if circumstances of life can afford it, so that you can savor it for however longer. And then you will see how life will present you with extraordinary opportunities. I'm not making things up. I'm not taking this, speaking of make it on some kind of belief. It's a fact. Whenever there is more of that creativity, there's more of that what belongs to the field of pure potentialities. When we know where we're going, our actual possibilities are already limited there and then. When we know exactly what we want, and going there, which has its own value, of course, it is already limited there and then. Possibilities are limited because you limited them yourself. But in a state of not knowing, it's as if you're inviting a lot more of what can happen. But of course, mind will kick in and begin to play havoc. It will begin to, most likely, in most of us, that is the case, be subjected to the patterns of so-called negative thinking, of so-called thinking that belongs to outlived paradigms when we speak of this. Because these patterns are still there. They play themselves out. If it's so profound, and this unplugging takes place in such a way that you might actually not have these patterns playing themselves out. But then the cost of that is a greater degree of temporary dissociation. It's like you would not even know who the heck are you? What are you doing here? right? Relationships, everything. It has its pluses because of that, because it's like you become a white canvas again. Anything can be painted on that. The synaptic connections are, a lot of them have been rendered impotent, unplugged. And in that unplugged state, there is this wonder prevails. And of course, that sense of wonder is constantly infused with the sense of not knowing how things will pan out. But if the unplugging is strong, they would not be even accompanied by worry. Why? Because even that part, synaptic part, that was acting as that safety valve, or like, that kind of safety mechanism, is also unplugged. So it's like, whatever, It's like somebody will tell you, you better put yourself together, you are a real mess. What the hell? How on earth are you going to do things now? How are you going to make a living? How are you going to? You will be just like, tell me something else, because it will not at all resonate with this, what we speak of now, as these patterns, these synaptic connections. So you see that there is this double edge, if you will. It's like two sides to it, like a double-edged sword. It has this, on one hand, in a way it is beneficial, and providing there is a lot of already that ground in terms of the psychological maturity and understanding, then it is actually more preferable. In all other cases, it's not really preferable. It's better than this process of unplugging is more gradual. So let's say there are 100%, just like, which now will be represented by 100 plugged in connections. Just think, there are thousands, maybe millions. But we can single out the principal ones. If 50% of them unplugged temporarily, then in that unplugged state, right, rewiring, we call it, rewiring. Remember that term? When we undergo this rewiring, then the other 50 will act as that safety mechanism, so to speak. And it will feel daunting. But if the unplugging is more dramatic, let's say 30% remaining, 70% completely gone, unplugged, then you are loose cannon, my friend. You know what that means? Loose cannon. Huh?
Cannon?
Loose cannon.
Ah, yeah.
So it may be very pleasant. And the great thing about it, there is no fear. There's no fear, you see? The fear will not enter there. So that does not happen to everyone. It does not happen in all cases. So therefore, I would say it's more preferable than it is more gradual. So there is this gradual unplugging taking place, unless there is a great understanding. And of course, what understanding? Understanding of direct experience that you are consciousness. Then everything is in reference to that. Your life suddenly in reference to that. Before that, life is always in reference to the body. I am this body, I'm this person, I am this. So that may be kind of a bit of a funky analogy. Loose cannon is, that's what I mean. The one who has complete identity with consciousness will not be impeded by any of these fears. It will simply not come into play. But because of these patterns and because of the way we are synaptically connected, There is this sense, this identity has not yet been remolded. So this identity with you as a person is very strong still. So therefore, in that open state, it immediately kicks in, what am I going to do now? You know, I can't, like, you know. So what I'm trying to appeal to those synaptic connections that are present. You see? That it's a good thing, it's a positive thing, it's a sign of openness, sign of creativity, sign of being open to possibilities. And second is that in that unfoldment, because of these aforementioned aspects, because of there is a greater possibility, in this activation of consciousness, it's like again in that quantum realm. It's wherever your attention goes, it immediately magnifies it. Wherever your attention goes, as it inevitably will, it will have success, greater success. This work does not make homeless people, you see? So you need to understand this. You need to have your trust in that. I'm not a teacher who pushes people off the cliff for them to have no clue of who they are. So if you're really, really following the discourses, if you really understand how and what individuality is comprised of, what we spoke in the program here earlier in June, remember? All these should go into making it into your own assets. So what I would instead advise you right now to enjoy this openness. Like give yourself license, give yourself complete allowance. In the duration of the retreat, certainly completely give yourself this. And you will see how that membrane of putting yourself together, as it were, when the push comes to shove, when you would need to, will take place. Your nervous system is still young, agile, and hopefully not too stressed. So there's greater agility, greater liveliness. You see? What can happen to that? What are you even afraid of? Huh? It's ridiculous. It's not found. But it plays itself out in all of us who went through this. At some point it rises, and these daunting feelings, doubts, they surface. And you need to deal with that with crystal clarity. So good that you brought it out into the open. This state of creativity is inseparable from not knowing. And out of that not knowing, that creative state naturally translates into an action where it begins to then flow in a certain direction. Then we are prompted to act on it, and we begin to express ourselves. And this is the most important. The most important is to remain in that molten state of being creative at all times. It has to be fostered, honed.